Hey, I'm Jusko from ProudMoney.com. In this video, we are going to look at the best secured credit cards on the market. Toward the end of the video, I'll talk more about what secured cards are and how they work in case you don't know. But just up front here, the quick version is that secured cards are targeted toward people either with bad credit who are trying to rebuild their credit scores, or sometimes people that are new to credit, especially sometimes people that are new to the United States who are having trouble getting an unsecured credit card. So a secured credit card, just quickly here, the only difference between it and a regular unsecured card is that you have to put down a refundable, and that's important, security deposit in order to get the card. When you no longer want the card or you get graduated to a regular unsecured card, you would get that security deposit back. So it's a little safety for the bank, but it is your money. Now, in ranking secured cards, the most important factor is going to be how quickly and how likely is it that you are going to be graduated from the secured card to an unsecured card and get that security deposit back in your hands instead of it sitting in a bank. From the major banks, most of the other features, fees, interest, rewards aren't going to be a whole lot different. So the most important factor to focus on really is how quickly can you get that security deposit back if you make your payments on time with these cards. So that is what we're going to look at first and foremost, and we'll talk about those other things as well. That said, the best secured credit card on the market today, as it has been for quite a while, is the Discover It secured card. This is a card that once you are approved, you will put down at minimum a $200 security deposit, and then you will get a credit limit that is equal to the amount of that security deposit. Now, that doesn't mean that your payments are coming out of the deposit. Your payments are going to come from other money, but the bank wants that deposit as a safety in case you don't pay, which is why the credit limit equals the amount that you have put down. Otherwise, a nice card from Discover. No annual fee. You've got some modest rewards here, 2% cash back at gas stations, 2% at restaurants, 1% everywhere else. At the end of the first year, you'll actually get those rewards doubled. So in the first year, it's actually 4% gas stations, 4% restaurants, 2% everywhere else, assuming you still have the card. After a year, 28.24% as an interest rate as I make this video. That is high, but if you pay all of your bills on time and in full, you won't actually pay interest because you are going to have a grace period here with this card, just like most credit cards. That 28.24% kind of in line with all the other cards we're going to talk about as well. But as long as you pay in full each month, you don't have to pay any interest, and sometimes people get confused on that point. Now, the reason this card is number one on this list, though, is because after 7 months, Discover says that they are going to start doing automatic monthly reviews to see if you are eligible to be graduated to an unsecured card, meaning they're going to give you the security deposit back and you will continue to use the card just as you always have, but now that money will be in your bank instead of in their bank. And Discover has a reputation for being pretty good about upgrading people after 7 months if they have paid all their bills on time and the rest of their credit profile looks good. None of this is guaranteed in terms of how they are going to look at your profile, but oftentimes people will tell you that yes, Discover got them their money back pretty quick. Number two on the list, if you qualify to be a member of Navy Federal Credit Union, their N Rewards secured credit card is a very good one. Navy Federal says that they will start looking at your account after 6 months to potentially give you your security deposit back. So maybe even quicker than Discover, and maybe this would be number one if everyone could qualify to be a member of Navy Federal Credit Union. In order to be a member, you have to either be current or former military, or the family of current or former military, and then Department of Defense employees and their families as well. So there is a limitation there. But a very good credit card here, other than the fact that you could get your security deposit back pretty quickly with this card. You have no annual fee. You do have a $200 minimum, again, in order to get that security deposit in, and you would get the same credit limit with the card. It has a low interest rate of 18%, at least compared to these other cards. Again, you don't want to pay interest at all, but if you had to, this is going to be a little better. So you do have a 1% reward on this card as well, 1% cash back on all the purchases that you make with it. If you are upgraded after 6 months, you actually aren't going to just keep this card. They're going to give you your security deposit back, and they're going to upgrade you to a better Navy Federal Credit credit card, which is their cash rewards card, which could earn you either 1.5% cash back or 1.75% cash back, depending on whether you do direct deposit with Navy Federal. So a very good secured credit card if you can qualify to be a member of Navy Federal. Number 3 on this list, the Capital One Quicksilver Rewards secured card. Like the other cards we've talked about, once you are approved, you'll put down a security deposit of at least $200. Your credit limit will be the same as the amount of that security deposit. Now, after 6 months, Capital One says that they would consider you for a credit limit increase, which means your credit limit could go up while your security deposit stays the same. They won't require you to put more money on as a security deposit, but they'll give you a higher credit limit. Now, Capital One is a little non-committal when it comes to actually graduating you fully from a secured card to an unsecured card. You can probably count on at least a year before it would potentially happen with Capital One, but it could be sooner or it could be longer. Capital One doesn't really talk about a regular process to look at your account and when that might happen, and so that is a little bit of a downside with Capital One. Otherwise, with this card, no annual fee, 1.5% cash back on all the purchases you make with the card, which is a nice reward. In terms of interest rate, 29.99%, which is not so nice, but as long as you pay in full each month, you will not have to pay any interest. Number 4 on the list, Bank of America Customized Cash Rewards Secured Card. Like the other cards we've talked about, once approved, you put down a security deposit of at least $200. You get a credit limit that is the same as the amount that you put down as the security deposit. Now, with Bank of America, they do say they periodically check your account to potentially give you that security deposit back if you've been doing all the right things. But they're pretty non-committal in terms of when they're going to start doing that and what your chances are of being graduated to an unsecured card. Probably going to be at least a year with Bank of America. But in terms of the everyday features of the card, pretty good. No annual fee. You get 3% cash back in one purchasing category that you get to choose from a list of potential categories. Things like gas, dining, online shopping, travel, and there are others. You choose one of those and you get 3%. You get 2% back on grocery stores or wholesale club purchases, 1% back on everything else. As I make this video, 29.24% APR, 29.24% interest rate on this card. So again, pay those bills in full and you won't actually have to pay any interest. So a decent card from Bank of America, another good option. Number 5 on this list, the US Bank Altitude Go secured card. Like the others, once approved, you put down a security deposit. In this case, $300 is the minimum to get the card, and then you get a credit limit of that same amount. US Bank says you may be automatically graduated on their credit card website, but doesn't really tell you very much in terms of how likely it is that you'll be graduated and in what time frame. So figure it's probably going to be at least a year with US Bank. In terms of the everyday features of the card, pretty good. No annual fee. You're going to get 4% cash back on restaurant purchases, 2% back at grocery stores, 2% back on gas station or electric vehicle charging, 1% back everywhere else. So overall, a decent card. You might also look at the US Bank Cash Plus secured card, which is a little different in terms of the rewards it offers, but otherwise the same deal. So for most people, one of those 5 cards is the choice you should make. Now, there are some exceptions because secured credit cards are not guaranteed approval. So even though you're putting down a security deposit, it is possible that an issuer could still decline you for a secured card, especially if you've had trouble with them, in particular in the past, if you have a bad credit history. So for some people, they might not be able to get one of these secured cards if their credit is really super bad. So I'm going to give you 2 other options that you might look at if you fall into that category. One is the Chime Credit Builder Visa. The way Chime works is if you are a Chime banking customer and you have a checking account with them, you can qualify for the Chime Credit Builder Visa without any sort of credit check, so you don't have to worry about that. And then the way it works is the money you have in your checking account essentially acts as the security deposit for the card. So whatever you have in the checking account is essentially the credit limit you're going to have on the card. Now, what Chime does, which is probably good for some people, although you can also opt out of it, is they will, by default, every time you make a purchase, they will essentially put aside that amount from your checking account And then at the end of the month, when it is time to make your payment, they are going to take all that money that they've put aside and automatically make the payment for you. And then that will be reported to the credit reporting bureaus that you made your payment on time. In that way, it acts like a debit card, but in the fact that it reports to the credit reporting bureaus means it is going to help your credit score. And so that's a pretty nice default way to help you make sure you make your payments on time and help you improve your credit. Now, you do have to have a checking account with Chime in order to get the card, so that's up to you whether it is worth it or not. And then finally, the Open Sky credit cards. There are 3 different secured credit cards from Open Sky. This, as far as I'm concerned, is a option if you're a little more desperate to get a secured credit card, if for whatever reason you couldn't get one in any of these other options. Nothing wrong with Open Sky, except they are not going to ever graduate you to an unsecured card because they don't offer unsecured cards. So really you're using them as a stepping stone, and then later on you might apply somewhere else in order to get an unsecured card. The upside to Open Sky potentially is no credit check. You can open a secured card with them for as little as $100. Now, you may have an annual fee on the card depending on which one you choose, but you don't necessarily have to have one. So you take a look at the options there and decide. All right, so those are the cards, but as promised, I want to come back around to talk a little bit more about how secured credit cards work if it is still a little confusing to you, because I kind of rattled through that information on the front end. So the point of secured credit cards is to give people with bad credit histories an option to get a credit card. Sometimes people who have not had credit in the past, especially if new to the United States, might use secured cards as well. But in particular, it's for people that have a bad credit history and are trying to rebuild that history. Because you have a bad credit history or maybe no credit history, the banks that offer secured cards want you to have some skin in the game in the form of a security deposit. So you have to put down money that is put off to the side as a safety for the bank in case you don't pay your bills. But it is refundable. It is your money. As long as you make your payments with the card over time, you're going to get that money back when you are graduated to an unsecured card or when you simply close the account when you don't want it anymore. Like I said earlier, when you are paying your credit card bill each month with a secured card, that money is not coming out of the security deposit. This is not a debit card. So you're going to pay your bill out of other money that you have, and that security deposit is going to continue to sit there in the bank only to be refunded to you when you are graduated to an unsecured card or you close the account. And then just like any other credit card, secured credit cards are going to report your payments or non-payments to the major credit reporting bureaus, TransUnion, Equifax, and Experian. Assuming you are making your payments on time like you are supposed to, this should help increase your credit score, which is going to help you get better credit cards in the future. Now, understandably, most people don't want to put down a security deposit in order to get a credit card, especially when it means their purchases have to be paid for with other money besides that security deposit. There is a commitment that you have to make here, which is not particularly attractive. However, if you are not being approved for any of the unsecured cards on the market from the major banks or local banks or credit unions or whatever, because your credit is too bad, or maybe if you don't have any credit, well, then secured credit cards are going to be a better way to go than some of the bottom feeder unsecured cards that are out there that might approve you, but they're going to charge you high fees, have high interest, give you minuscule credit limits, and so you'll be unsecured, but you'll actually end up paying a lot more over time with some of those sort of bad credit unsecured cards than you would be with a secured card. Yes, you had to put down a security deposit, but that is refundable, and when the card is graduated, you're going to get that money back, and in most cases, you're going to end up with a credit card from a major bank, which is probably where you want it to be in the first place. So that is it for this video. Questions, comments, would love to hear them in the comments section below. Otherwise, I thank you for watching, and as always, please go to proudmoney.com where we do credit card reviews, we talk personal finance, we talk deals, and all sorts of other fun stuff too. If you don't have any comments or you're not going to go to the website, there is another video I know of that you're going to want to watch, and it's right there.